I'm seeing $1.8 million homes with one of their upgrades being vinyl flooring. I just ran into that recently. That was their tier two upgrade. Well, what was the first one? Was it dirt?
Welcome, wood floor professionals, to ATWF, all things wood floor, brought to you by Wood Floor Business. I'm your host, Stephen Diggins, with Wood Pro Inc., a division of Horizon Forest Products. Today, David Ford, Vice President of Sales and Marketing with Stauf Adhesives, will discuss several topics, including industry-wide adhesive shortages, why the wood flooring industry can be a race to the bottom, why more people should consider a career in wood flooring, what it's like to work with German design engineering, and more. Before we jump in, I want to let you know that this episode is brought to us by Stauf Adhesives. Without further delay, let's meet today's guest, David Ford. Wood floor pros around the world, let's get to it. All right, David Ford, welcome to Wood Floor Business Magazine's All Things Wood Floor.
Thank you for having me, Stephen. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you and your audience. I really do.
Yeah, I'm excited about this. You know, I think we always kind of start kicking this stuff off from the beginning. How'd you end up in the wood flooring industry?
Family. One side of the family was in the aviation business. My father was a retired colonel from the Air Force. The other side of my family was from the wood business and in hardwood flooring and in the making there of white oak whiskey barrels. Seagram's had a plant here in Memphis being the hardwood capital of the world. I know that's kind of hard to believe, but it is. There at one time I believe there were 5 hardwood flooring mills alone here. And of course, E.L. Bruce was here, Memphis Hardwood, DeSoto Hardwood, and there were a couple of others before my time. But they all those were really before my time, but they've since gone by the wayside. But we headquartered the National Oak Flooring Manufacturers Association, the NHLA. The Hardwood Market Report is generated out of here. It was a really good connection down the Mississippi for hauling logs, and the hardwood business was always large. I'm just part of that genetic tree, and somehow or another I ended up in the hardwood flooring business as well.
I didn't know E.L. Bruce was down there. They were a big tail wagger in our industry. Sure. Oh yeah, and sure. Boy, in McMinnville, I've played golf down there alone. You've got McMinnville and Cumberland and a lot of reputable folks. Yeah, that is a mecca for flooring, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it is. You had Tennessee just in general. It's almost kind of like Kentucky and Virginia with regards to, having lots of hardwood flooring or hardwood period influence. So
you have all that history and Elvis?
We got Elvis, baby.
And he hasn't left the building yet, Elvis. Apparently. I got into it from the flooring contractor, and you're on that other side of it. Were you involved in the flooring contractor end or just straight in from the lumber section?
Well, yeah, I was involved in the flooring contractor end as a kid. Grandfather had a sand and finish company here in Memphis, and we would, as kids, we would go out and we would hammer floors down, and he would pay us, I don't remember, $1 an hour or something like that, and we would go out on jobs and he'd pay us a little bit of something. And I remember as a kid thinking, this is why you go to college, because I had a manual nailer and a hammer, and in the hot houses with, you're supposed to have heating and air conditioning on. That never happens here, not in Memphis anyway. And you're laying 1.5 inch flooring, 2 1/4 inch flooring at best during that time. And with a manual nailer, there wasn't no electricity, so there wasn't any, there wasn't pneumatic guns that we were using or anything. So it was pretty hot, pretty brutal, and you realize real quick, hey, this is really not what I want to do for the rest of my life. Although now I think you can make such a great living doing it, and I would highly recommend somebody do it if they're physically capable, because wow, it's a lost and dying art, but yet a demand that still increases. And the true craftsmen of that industry are they're just going by the wayside. That's unfortunate that they are.
You touched on that. I was going to ask you how you thought the business changed since you got into it, but you make that assertion. There aren't enough people. There aren't enough qualified people. Why do you think there aren't enough hardwood flooring contractors? In your opinion, everybody's got one.
Well, it's just going to be my opinion, but my opinion is here in the United States, we have colleged ourselves to death.
Yeah.
We've colleged ourselves into a hole where, the only way you can make a living anymore is everybody go to school. Well, we've become a bunch of educated idiots in some regards because, a friend of mine is a welding instructor. He told me the other day, he said, these guys that are coming out of welding school now are making, 75 to 85 a year, debt free, and being able, they can turn around and go back to school in some sort of college capacity and never have to come out of pocket or go to loans for it. So the unfortunate side is that we as a country have worked ourselves. Let me back up and say this. I don't think, Stephen, we don't manufacture anything anymore. We manage everything.
Yeah.
And in managing everything, we lose a lot of art, a lot of hands-on, a lot of technical know-how. And, it's nobody wants to actually run the sander. Everybody wants to go to school to learn how to engineer that sander. So, it's kind of where we've come to as a society. And unfortunately, our society is losing skilled craftsmen and tradesmen that the demand is never slowed down for. And now the demand is still there with fewer people to slice it up between. And now these guys are getting to name their own dimes and nickels as far as what it costs per square foot. I was just talking with a friend of mine the other day that just received a grant on a bid for 7-inch white oak flooring, Select and Better, that he put down for a little over $53 a square foot.
Right.
So when you start looking at stuff like that, you think, wow, do the math. How many square feet was it? It was about 7,000 square feet. Now we're talking about a chunk of change.
A lot of money there.
So there's a lot of money involved in that. And the better you are, the more that you can demand. To have a friend here locally in Memphis that has been doing this his whole life. And he asked me just recently, he goes, what do you think I could make as like a technical director somewhere? I said, 75, 85. I don't know. It just depends. It depends on the company. He goes, for technical knowledge in the hardwood flooring industry. I said, yeah, probably. He might make 90, might make 100. I don't know.
Right.
He goes, well, he looked at me and he said, well, it seems like then I would have to take a significant pay cut to come in and do that. And I said, in the Memphis market, I said, are you really doing that well? And he said, let's just say that last year I just reported about 320.
Oh,
and I said, dollars?
Get my tool belt.
1,000? What are we?
But
he said, yeah, I reported.
They're like the Godfather. Drag me back in. Bring me in.
They keep dragging me back in.
Oh, man.
The guy's making a killing. You don't get to say, I studied at Duke University. You don't get to say all that. But guess what? You might go by the parking lot on the way to the restaurant and wonder whose Porsche that was, and it may not be the general practitioners. It might be the flooring contractor.
It's been said that right now the state of the market, the state of the industry is, quote, a race to the bottom. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that is what I tell my salespeople all the time.
Yeah,
our industry is a race to the bottom. It always has been. And I'm just speaking of the floor covering industry and as a whole, hardwood flooring being part of that.
Right.
It is a race to the bottom. simply based on square footage price. Uh, that's how most people are selling now. They're not selling features and benefits. They're selling a warm body in front of somebody, and they don't, distributors don't invest in their salespeople well enough to see that if I give them the actual training, they actually understand how to sell features and benefits.
Oh, so that the contractor can benefit from that, from getting those features, offering them to their customers, value-added service kind of a thing.
Yeah, value add. Yeah, even at distributor level, why let's just say like you guys at WoodPro.
Yeah.
Let's just say that you guys got, I don't know. I know this is hypothetical, but if you had engineered hardwood floor and somebody comes in looking for a hardwood floor that's a half-inch thick that's really got a good wear layer on it, they don't want to have to replace that, 6 years down the road. They're going to say, "Hey, Stephen, tell me what's the story with this one? This one's wide and this one looks thick, and when it's actually got a 32nd of an inch wear layer, whereas I can take you over to this one, and this one's got a quarter-inch wear layer or 3/16 inch wear layer. Which one of these pieces is going to last longer and why?"
Right.
It can be a difference in finishes. It can be difference in the way that the product is installed. Whatever the feature and benefit is, if you're not knowledgeable about it, the consumer or the purchaser is going to turn around and look at you and go, "I don't think this guy knows what he's talking about," and he's not comfortable with it.
Right.
You can sell off of technical knowledge, but anyway, that's going down.
Oh, it's a good way to go. Do you think that there's a lack of technical knowledge and training in not only the field, but also and we talk about wholesale, but manufacturing as well? Is that tough to get people that are on the level they need to be to communicate in our field and technically in hardwood flooring? Even on the manufacturer's level? I mean, you're an adhesive manufacturer. Obviously, you guys get a bad rap all the time because you're working with engineered products, and I hear misnomers about engineered product all the time. Ridiculously silly things. Like, well, no one wants that. That stuff's junk. Well, that's because what you're buying for $1.99 is not what we're selling. Like you said, 6 millimeter wear layer, half-inch or 3/4 thick, engineered with a sliced veneer. Maybe it's quarter sawn. I think that I know when I deal with your people and the people that are on that end, they tend to be pretty technically savvy when you get to that level.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing that I find is that it gets lost in translation.
Okay.
So what I as a manufacturer have come in and taught the WoodPro salespeople as a distributor, and the distributor turn around and sells to the retail sector, and what they transfer to the retail sector salesperson on the floor, where Miss Consumer comes in and purchases a floor. There's 3 levels of translation that it can get lost through. I've always been a proponent of someone else's sense of urgency is never your sense of urgency.
No, it isn't.
It's the whole what's the thing where you used to sit in a circle and you said a word
like grapevine
and go around. Yeah,
I know this grapevine.
By the time it got to the other person, it started out as a dishwasher, and by the time it gets around to him, it's fiat currency. So
absolutely.
It is lost in translation, and unfortunately, people only retain what they're interested in. And a lot of people are not interested in it. I mean, a lack of training, technical knowledge is skipped as a fundamental that all sales personnel should know. If you skip those fundamentals, we're building on nothing more than relationships. And I am not a proponent of saying that that's not important. It very much is important. Those relationships are important. But who are you going to buy from? A guy who comes in and slaps you on the back and says, "I got these 3 colors and these 2 species. Let's go to lunch. Where do you want to go play golf?"
Yeah.
Are you going to talk to the guy who comes in and says, you can get that in 3-inch, 5-inch. You can get it in maple. You can get it in red oak. I can get it in white oak. I can get it in select and better. I can get it in number one comment, and I get them in random lengths. Random bundles, 7 foot all the way up to 7 foot. You're more comfortable talking to the guy who sounds like he knows what he's talking about because he's invested the time and he's interested in it.
You offer the consumer what they want.
If
not what you want to sell.
Yeah,
that is a big thing.
Yeah.
When I was coming up through the ranks, I think that was always it. I went head over heels for the knowledge part, and I didn't sound like a salesman. I would ask what the customer wants. How do we meet that technically, and what products we need aesthetically, whatever that is. And another person in this area would say, well, if you don't have Red Oak Clear with Fabulon, then you have the wrong people doing your floors. And that got a little to wear on people because the Amazon paradigm today is fast, quick lightning service. Answer my questions. Don't get back to me another time. Answer them now and find for me what I want. Quick. It's that net zero speed, delivery. Let's go.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And in hardwood flooring, it's a similar thing. People listen, this is what I want. And how do I get it? And when I work with designers and engineers, sometimes it's a fight because they want to prove to their customer that money will get them anything. And sometimes technically it's a super bad idea. Now, maple
it can be
on a slab, glued down with all the wrong conditions, but that's what they want to see because it's pretty. And it's my job to explain where we need to be if we want to get something like this correct right from the very beginning. In the compass of a business, when people say I run a flooring business and they add the word business, let's start with profit. Your compass in business is profitability. That's the lifeblood of what you do. It buys your tools, buys your equipment, feeds your family. If the compass is to gain a profit from what you do, which is fairly deserved, don't you find that this lack of training, it definitely has an impact on profitability?
Every time. Yeah. I mean, let me back up and say that, a lot of the carpet and vinyl people they have to sell hardwood floor too. And unfortunately, it comes down to color. The consumer doesn't know what they want.
No,
the consumer comes in and shows you a picture out of such and such magazine and says, "Hey, I want this.
Yeah,
this right here."
They're waving their phone at you.
I want that. Yeah, I'm waving your phone. That's a great example. What they said is, "I want this color.
Yes,
I want this kind of look." And I eventually want my decor in the house to look like this too.
Right.
This is what I want. This is the appearance that I'm going for.
Right.
Well, it's up to you as an installer or a retail salesperson, distributor salesperson. It's up to you to steer the consumer in what it is that they want. You steer them the wrong way, now you're going to look like an idiot. And you've lost confidence. You're going to lose margin. It happens every time. You got to go. You got to go into some technical knowledge to increase your margin. Because I can assure you that if a consumer is out there on the street and they're going out to buy hardwood flooring from XYZ, they're going to go back to the people who know what they're talking about.
Right.
Oh, that's XYZ flooring over there. Yeah, last time I was over there, they had a whole display of solids and engineereds, and they explained to me why I'd need one here and another one here, and what species would work with what conditions, and what quarter sawn was, and I didn't even know there was such a thing as quarter sawn versus flat. So,
do you think that with all this that it's because of this that I think I'm seeing, and you're probably seeing, things that look like flooring are making a big impact right now? All sorts of things that are not wood that look supposedly like wood are getting involved here.
Yeah, the unfortunate side of that is that they're not increasing the value of the home. You're not. It's not a selling point to say, "Hey, it's got 2,000 feet of vinyl in it." Right. Not as a shot to the vinyl. It has its place, but I mean, I'm seeing $1.8 million homes with one of their upgrades being vinyl flooring. I just ran into that recently. That was their tier 2 upgrade.
Right.
Well, what was the first one? Was it dirt? Because we're talking about pennies, honestly, in manufacturing cost per square foot versus a piece of lumber wood that is actually going to have some value. Um, I think it's still unknown as to where. Yeah, let me say it this way, Stephen. The truth is our industry is always changing. You've watched it ebb and flow over your whole life, and hardwood takes front and center stage, and it goes away for a little while, and then it comes back. But the one thing that I like about hardwood, though, is that it may, as far as its popularity is in installing in new homes, regardless of whether or not it's installed, it never loses its style.
No.
It's always ageless. Always. It's always ageless. Now, it may take on different looks. It may look gray right now, or it may look, the latest trend that's coming back is completely clean white oak floors. Just, select clear.
Yep.
Wide boards that are not too wide, and they're coming back. That is a big trend on the West Coast that I'm seeing right now. It's going to look different than the gray and the white,
which are really popular right now. Gray, all over the place.
Which are very popular right now, but it's going to change. If for anyone that's a retailer out there that wants to know exactly what's going to happen with our flooring industry, and I don't care if it's a vinyl carpet, LVT, VCT, I don't care, wood, it doesn't matter what it is. Just go to the furniture market about 5 years earlier.
Right. That'll
tell you what your flooring is going to do. That's where it's coming from.
Right. You and I were both around doing adhesive testing in the 90s. I was using Bruce Everbond LP. That one. Was that a trichlorosolvent? Was that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Trichlorosolvent.
Thick, heavy duty. And remember, put it down and go have lunch. And then come back and you wipe your hand across it. If it's stuck to your fingers, it's not ready yet. If it's pliable and doesn't stick to your fingers, go ahead and put flooring and roll it with a 150-pound roller. That's where I think you and I came into it. I was doing testing, and you mentioned, just because you can do a vinyl floor doesn't mean you can do wood. Well, we had people throwing vinyl flooring adhesive at the wood flooring industry because they were looking for make people rich with a big answer to solvent-free, low VOC was the new terminology.
Yeah.
And those glues were an absolute nightmare. That's where you came into this whole picture. Give me some of that.
Yeah, I was when I was working for Anderson Tully at Capella at the time, and I was looking to private label an adhesive for the company. And a friend of mine was working at this particular adhesive company, and we were using a full filled finish where we filled all the spring wood in the process of where it was like a piano grade finish, if you will, and piece of furniture. And that was again, going back to trends, that was a trend at the time, right? So the problem with it is that the engineered wood, or the peeled lumber that we were using, a lot of times it would, if it took on any kind of water at all, any kind of moisture, it would wrinkle across the face. I'm sure some of your audience has seen that, where, an engineered floor gets wet and it kind of wrinkles. It looks like a dried up paper towel, if you will. So, but at any rate, I had tried several water-based adhesives and it wouldn't work because of that. It would give that appearance. This friend of mine called me and said, "Hey, I got something over here you need to see." And I said, "So help me, if it's another water-based finish, water-based adhesive, I'm going to kill you. I don't even want to be over there. I don't want to come over there." And he said, "No." He goes, "I've got something called it's an MS polymer." And understand this was in the year 2002, 2001, where there was no such thing in the industry at that time. He goes, "And I've got a solvent." And I said, "Come on, man, solvents are gone." He goes, I said, "What, they get an extension or something?" He said, No. He goes, "This is an alcohol-based solvent." And I said, "What?" So I said, "You got my attention. Let me come look at it." So I went over and looked at it, and sure enough, they had a urethane, and they had a water base, and they had something called MS polymer that I had never dealt with at the time. And I thought they were calling it more of a hybrid, kind of a moisture cured, but it wasn't urethane, but it wasn't, I was like, okay, so that's interesting. And it cleans off the face of the boards. That's interesting. Okay. So I got down, I was messing with all of them, and I got to messing with their, the WFR 930 solvent. I got messing with that thing, and I stood up and wiped my hands and threw my rag down, and I said, "Well, boys," I said, I'm gonna recommend that one for private label." "Well, which one's the solvent?" "Yeah, I sure am." "Why?" "Well," I said, "it does what the old trichlors did. There's a lot of guys out there who've been on their knees who still understand trichlor. It's alcohol. It is never going to go away because it's not trichloroethylene. It's alcohol based, and unless they ban, your car or beer, we're in good
Full
shape."
prohibition again. Here we go.
Yeah. So, and I said, people will enjoy that. And then I guess it was probably maybe a month later, they called me and said, "Look, I don't know why you picked that one, but would you be interested in, possibly looking at coming to work for the company?" I said, "Yeah, I'm a wood guy. I'm not a, I'm not a chemical guy, and 18 years later, here I am. So, I've been here ever since.
Remember, a long time ago, there was a point in this country where parquets and the early engineered flooring saved everybody's butts, because in the South, we had gone through a really mothballed mills and plants all over the place shutting down, and they were able to use hot tar and cold stick mastic, remember that one, and able to get floors to stay down and do a lot throughout the South. And then today we get a lot more glue down with engineered, et cetera. But you had mentioned something once to me, and I wrote it down because I thought it was interesting to throw in my mental notebook that I hadn't heard too often. Was you mentioned products can be over-engineered, and I wasn't sure exactly what you meant by that.
Yeah, if I would say this, probably the best way to say it is that German manufacturing is over-engineered, and I don't really care which product it is. It can be hair dryers, it can be shavers, it can be hardwood flooring adhesive. It can be whatever. It can be literally any product. Chainsaws. It's just made to last and built. Homes, same way. A home in America that's 50, 70 years old, we're considering, hey, that's a pretty old house. The youngest one they have is 175 years. I can't remember the first time I went to Germany to go to the plant. We were going in some of these restaurants that were old homes turned into restaurants, and I would say, how old is this house? And I said, I think it's 240 years old. And I'm like, what?
Wow.
This is older than this.
Is it a castle you were in?
Yeah, no, it was just a regular house.
Did they have a moat in front yard? Okay.
Well, they would take you down in the basement, and you would see these old stack stone archways, right, that were built like in the 1700s. You're like, what? Who does this? But the house is still standing,
right, and
adhesive is no different. These guys. Our guys, hats off to Dr. Frank Gallman. He is concerned about performance. He is not concerned about really what it costs. He's worried about performance. That it has to work. It cannot fail. And I can say that, in my tenure here, I've had probably can count legitimate claims, maybe on one hand, maybe. In 18 years, I had more than that in a week with hardwood flooring. Right. So they do a really good job. They over-engineer it. And what I mean by that specifically, Stephen, is it's over-engineered to the point to where, like, if one particular adhesive that's on the market, and I won't mention any names because we can here, but there are adhesives on the market that have 180 psi shear strength. Okay, that's more than enough to keep your hardwood floor glued down to a slab.
Right.
I mean, we're talking even an F5 tornado coming through would not suck it off.
Absolutely.
Off the floor at that point. But understand that that same type of product from Germany, from our guys, I mean, if it's not pushing the shear strength meter to 320, 340, 350, right, sometimes 800, sometimes 1100.
Sure.
It's over engineered. You don't need anything like that.
It's like
That's
overkill.
crazy.
I get it. Yeah, all right.
Yeah,
That
way
makes sense.
overkill.
It could be
and
a good thing. It could be not a good. Could be just overdoing everything. Well, that makes sense.
And look, I have specifically asked for products that would be more, more acceptable, or maybe they would be more cost effective inside the United States. And the fact is that they'll just flat out tell you that's the way we make the glue.
Right. Head fizzy hills.
That's what we get.
You're right. That's why I think you're right. In our country, a lot of times people are looking for good, better, best. For this amount, you can have good, better, or best, and then you have to decide what the features and benefits are. But you're right. A lot of European countries, a lot of like ISO certified companies or countries go straight for best, and that's all we make, and that's just where it is. In you're like you're saying, if some of that were to be dialed back in cost a bit, the consumer is still getting exactly what they need or better without overpaying and overdoing all of that. You had mentioned too, products in applications like this have a fitness of duty, and I haven't heard that, but it seemed when you were talking to me about it, it made a lot of sense. Can you go over that one with me?
Well, there's a couple of things that I can talk about around that point. Fitness for duty is that a product is basically fit for a specific duty, and there's warranties implied inside that, according to the law.
Right.
The UCC, the Universal Commercial Code, basically says that there's, if anybody who took business law understands that there's an express or implied warranty by stating that it does X, Y, Z. Well, a lot of times people are not using the right product for the right particular installation. Fitness for duty means that it's suited for that particular purpose. And if you're incapable, if you think that you can put down just any old carpet vinyl adhesive underneath a piece of hardwood flooring, you're sadly mistaken. Sadly mistaken. It may perform as you walk out the door, but eventually it's going to fail due to whatever reason, be it it's water-based, the water finally seeps into the back of it, now it's starting to cup all over the floor, you're getting a call back. It's water-based and moisture migration through the slab starts to emulsify that particular adhesive over the period of time, and the floor is loose now. I can go on and on. There are all kinds of examples of things that are not fit. But the one thing that I find very interesting in our industry is that a lot of manufacturers and a lot of manufacturers of flooring, rather, in their particular warranties, what they're stating is, well, the only way you're going to get a warranty is if you use our particular adhesive.
Right.
Well, there's an inherent problem with that, just from the standpoint that, first of all, it's illegal to make such a statement. You can't. There's a tie-in exclusion in the Magnuson law that basically says you cannot make, if you have brand A lawnmower, the only way that you're going to keep brand A lawnmower in top running condition and that it will be warranted is if you use brand B lawnmower blades by that particular manufacturer. Well, there's a problem with that. And the problem with that is that the tie-in exclusion says, no, there's an express and implied warranty of fitness for duty, and that your particular product is going to perform at a certain level and for a certain function. And therefore, because of that, you can't tie in other products to your warranty.
Kind of monopolized.
It's illegal according. Yeah, it does monopolize, and I'm trying to remember what exactly the Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act. It basically is tie-in sales provisions. In general, tie-in sales provisions are prohibited. A tie-in sales provision requires a purchaser of a warranted product to buy a particular item or service from a specified company to use with the warranted product in order to be eligible to receive the benefits of that warranty. That's deceptive. So anybody who says you got to use this adhesive with this particular flooring, there is no law stating that, and by law they cannot tie that in. We've overcome that by saying, hey, you know what? I'll cover everything. I'm going to cover every kind of warranty that you have with the adhesive, and we've actually created partnerships out of said types of inclusions. Hey, look, I'll cover every piece of flooring that you got in your house, in your barn. I'll cover every type of flooring that you got, because the wood doesn't know what goes over the top of it, or underneath it, rather. Right? Well, I guess it may over the top of it, depending upon how much knowledge you've invested in. Right? So
exactly.
Yeah, the wood doesn't care whose glue it is underneath. It just needs something that causes it to bond. It doesn't care whose it is.
This episode is brought to you by Stauf Adhesives. Stauf innovations continue after nearly 200 years in the adhesive industry. Stauf's chemistry-based approach in manufacturing and product development allows for the creation of adhesives that solve many types of problematic flooring issues. With technologies that are green, sustainable, and truly advanced, Stauf has solidified its place in the world of adhesives. When seeking a solution for installation issues, stick with Stauf and stick with what works. Find out more at www.staufusa.com. That's STAUFUSA.com. Now let's get back to Stephen's talk with Stauf's David Ford.
David, talking about adhesives, and we all know that between COVID and the economy and the freezing going on in Texas, etc., I've been told by everybody in the adhesive and chemical industry that there have been huge problems. Tell me about all of those and how they affected our industry.
Basically, what happened was we got hit with the perfect storm on multiple fronts. In the middle of the end of late March this past year, there was a massive flash winter ice storm that hit the Houston area, if you would recall.
Sure.
The freeze was bad enough to create flash freezing in some of the petrochemical plants. And those are some of the plants that create some of the prepolymers and stuff for many industries, not only the adhesive industry, but plastic industry. So PVC was hit, plastic pails were hit, plastic sheeting was hit, everything was hit. It caused shortages to those industries by the gajillions, and it's still being felt today. Here we are in August. COVID-19 was already a problem from the standpoint that drivers were trying to stay away from positions, their driving positions, to avoid coming in contact and customers and coming in contact, becoming ill themselves, because they still didn't know a lot about COVID at that particular point in time. And so a lot of business went through the lockdown, and there wasn't really a whole lot of need for freight to transfer across the industry. So, so the demand for goods went down. The federal government came along and they subsidized the coronavirus relief fund, that in essence gave a lot of the employees more money to stay at home and accept the relief fund than it did for them actually go out and work and make a living. So this caused a further lack of trucking and shipping for a period of time throughout the U.S. as employees were making more money to just be at home. And that I get. All of the above, the four mentioned reasons, all of that caused a drain on raw material suppliers globally, not just inside the United States. So Houston was upset, and then they started looking to other markets to get it. Okay, well, we'll get petrochemicals from this. It's a byproduct. Some of the products that are used in the building of adhesives is a byproduct from the petrochemical industry. So the U.S. manufacturers started trying to get it from Europe, and Europe had a drain or sudden spike in their demand, which that caused a problem for them in other markets, and it takes time to ramp up. If you're wanting more of that, it takes time to get that ramped up. So there was also another some sort of disaster in Europe with raw materials suppliers, something that was a fire in some of the actual manufacturing facilities. So in their domestic production in Europe, they were short there as well. So now we got a drain on it from America. We've got a drain on it from internal, and they just couldn't keep up. China became a net importer instead of a lending to this petrochemical issue. So the first time in history, they become a net importer, and they're putting demand on petrochemicals plants all over the globe. Most manufacturers went into a force majeure scenario because they didn't have the raw materials to make the products, and the distributor we were having to allocate to distribution, and shipping costs have risen due to all of this as much as 100%. Transatlantic as high as 100%, and even more. I mean, I know people that were paying $4,000 and $5,000 for a container to get across the ocean that are now over 11,000 for that same container. So it was stupid, and then it caused, with the COVID being here, it caused sometimes 60, 70%, is 80% is freight, just on domestic freight. And then, so now you've got backup at the ports. Now, you've got everything adding to it, and it's going to be a while before it all catches up. And I'm going to say that we might start. I'm seeing just hints of relief right now, Stephen. I mean, just very few hints of it. But as of we record this as of August 17th. But I would say that it's going to be first quarter next year, maybe even mid-year, before we really start seeing some things start to happen on the adhesive front. A lot of people have not felt it, but a lot of the bigger distributors have gone in and said, you know what, if they've got it, buy all they got, buy everything that they have.
Absolutely.
Let me have everything that they have. So we ran into the toilet paper scenario of,
yes,
and that's what's happened to our industry. That's why people haven't been able to get adhesives, and it hadn't been around. So unfortunately, it is where we are. Some of the petrochemical plants are coming back online. Freight is easing up a little bit. We're starting to get some relief in the ports. But it's going to be slow goes it. We did have the perfect storm. That's what happened. That's why people don't see adhesives like they used to.
It still exists
as much.
I had one of our people told me that they were cut off from their plant in Germany from an avalanche in the middle of all this. Wiped out a whole town, wiped out the railway system. And we were talking about that because here in the States, people are calling us liars. We're making up stories. And it goes,
yeah,
because our consumers are like, fast and perfect. Where's my fast and perfect? I'll just go to Amazon. Yeah. I know you're conditioned for that, but they don't believe any of this. Everything's COVID's a lie, and the distribution, the trucking, and the fuel is a lie, and prices shouldn't go up ever, and there aren't any of these natural disasters. And somebody said to me today, their company just got super fouled by what's going on in the Middle East, and he explained that to me, and you said it. There are so many contributing factors, and all we can tell our customers is that product is not available. It's just not here.
I think if you would have told me 10 years ago that so much of our internal domestic production for plastics is a byproduct of the Houston market, I would have told you, oh, well, you can get it somewhere else.
Right?
No,
I thought that too. I thought of it this way.
I
heard about this freeze. They had a cold snap. Well, I'm from New England. 9 months is a cold snap. We have a cold snap and we have July. I'm like, so Texas, it's, whatever. No, and somebody said to me, you're not in the loop on this. It lasted a long time and valves broke. Like, you mean like on those super tankers that you see in fields full of things are popping, exploding, catching fire. They can't make chemicals. And you ask anybody that makes screens for sanding, there's really only 2 companies that make those products, and then or polyurethane, and they'll say, "Oh no, really? There's really one place we get this, and we all have to divvy it up. If they don't have it, we're all toast." Same thing I found out with this: glue, paint thinner, adhesives, you name it, shot to hell.
Yeah, Stephen. When we get off this podcast, I'm going to send you some photos of the actual petrochemical plants and some of the things that happen. I've got photos of it. It's incredible.
You know what? Well, let's get those pictures into Wood Floor Business Magazine, and I think that'd be great. I'll write a little something about it. That's a lot that people, and listen, people are still going to want fast and perfect. And then we have to scramble. There'd be people with 5-gallon pails of Skippy peanut butter and trowel going at it in another week. This is, I told you, I had a guy call and say, I didn't have any glue, so I dry laid it. And I called Howard Brickman at that time, and I said, I don't want to tip my hand that maybe I'm not the know-it-all I think I am, but I don't know what dry laying. And he was quiet. I'm like, uh-oh. He said, explain it to me. That was a while ago. And I said, The floor's beautiful. It's tight. It's net fit. It's engineered. It's beautiful. It's against the stone hearth. And when you walk on it, it's like rolling over a deck of cards or like walking on a bouncy castle. So I went back down into the house and I said, explain the dry, is that in the instructions? And he goes, I just, put it down. And I go, no nails, right? Yeah. No glue. No. What about seam glue? No, it just looked real nice. I put it down. Well, our humid comes, it's on a lake. Now it's up. And I was laughing. I turned to the realtor. She's no expert. And she says, my guess, easiest fix ever. I go, yeah, adhesive. Just lift it up, glue it down, be done with it. We're good. We're on our way. Listen, one thing we'll never run out of is stories in our industry. They're all over the place.
I was thinking the same thing. Steve and I should do an episode just on the stories.
Just on stories.
Just on the things that people have done and happened. I can remember I was in Kentucky and I got chased out of a house with a 1x1, like a sticker that goes on a pack of lumber. I was chased out of the house with the guy swearing that the floor was going to do that. The reason that it cupped is because it does that when the water comes out of the wood.
Oh, yeah.
I swear to you, he chased me in the front yard, and I got in the car
and left,
waiting for the distributor sales rep to get in. I said, man, I am not dealing with this idiot. Yeah. So I've got tons and tons of stories, tons of them.
Well, let's table those for another time. We'll have a big old party. Let's talk a little bit about what you do at Stauf. Because about almost 200 years ago, Eberhard Stauf was a tanner, if I remember correctly, and decided during a depression that he could make adhesive from the chemicals he was using in tanning. And now you have a job, and we're buddies. So see how that worked? It only took 200 years. We're on a path.
Right. Well, bam. There you go.
Boom.
Yeah. It started out. It started as an adhesive company in 1828.
Yeah.
It was prior to that. It was a tannery in the 1600s, all the way back to 1690 something. I can't remember. I think it's back as the Stauf's owning it all the way back to the 1692. I believe it was somewhere around there, and give or take a couple of years, we can count. But it was a tannery, and they were finding, as you tan hides, you have a lot of the fat and all of the byproducts of a tannery. That was when hide glue became a big deal, and that's where furniture glue and things started becoming very popular for use with musical instruments, furniture, anything having to do with wood. Really, that you needed to glue was made from hide glue. It's a very dense glue. It had no pliability to it, but it did stick. And in that era, the adhesive started to become more profitable than the tannery. And the tannery, they finally shut that down and said, hey, we're in the glue business. And that was in 1828. And then from 1828, they've just developed over the years after generation. Currently in its 6th generation, moving on to its 7th generation right now. And it is still the only adhesive company that focuses on flooring that I know of, that I'm currently aware of. There's others that get into automotive and aerospace and that type of technology, but we've always been smaller, more focused on flooring and the flooring industry. It's still privately held. It is not a publicly traded company. The two of the Stauf brothers are still involved. Their mother was until probably, I'd say, 11, 12 years ago. She passed away. Father passed away at a very young age. And so the two brothers are still involved. And one of them is Wolfgang Stauf, who is my partner here inside the United States. This is a separate LLC than the actual manufacturing facility in Germany, for legal liability and contractual reasons. But we've been inside the United States now for right at 21 years, I think. It started roughly in 2000. I came on in about 2003 or 3, somewhere around there. And we have grown exponentially through reputation, good name, good products,
Sure.
uniqueness, product uniqueness, and we're not the average. We're not the everyday Me Too adhesive company. A lot of adhesive companies out there, and there's very few that are differentiated very much. And the Germans have they got some uniqueness. I mean, they were the first ones here with an MS polymer. We were the first ones back here with a solvent. That we were the first ones to come up with a 3-in-1 application. You know,
Nice. Oh yeah.
One pass.
Is that vapor,
So,
sound, and adhesion?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So people started sitting up, taking notice that these guys they're a little different. They do things a little different. And I can remember some of my competitors coming by going, "Hey, what's this XYZ?" And I would say, it's just an adhesive. That's the bigger question is why do you want to know?
Right.
It was all semi competition.
That's your trade secrets. So listen,
Yeah,
I'm gonna let you scoot, but let me throw some quick fire questions at you, and you just give me the quickest answers you got, because I always turn these into another half-hour podcast. So I'm gonna behave myself. I'll throw them at you. You give me your answers, and I'll let you scoot. So, biggest flooring pet peeve. What do you got?
Bad craftsmanship, sanded finish, bad sanded finish.
If you weren't in the wood flooring industry, what do you think you might be doing?
Aviation,
Absolutely.
for sure. Yeah.
Who is somebody in the industry that you may or may not have met that you'd like to work with or talk with or hang out with?
The guy that I didn't get to hang out with much that I really would have liked to have would have been Mac from Power Nail. Great guy. Yeah, he was a great guy. He's passed away. He's since gone. But what a super guy. What a guy full of knowledge and just hilarious. Just
you don't appreciate your
absolute
fastener
blast.
salesmen. You're not hanging out with the right people in this industry. Those guys are fun.
They are fun.
And
Yeah, he
tell
was a great guy.
all the people in our podcast the truth. Is carpeting in your house? No carpeting? Is there carpeting in your home?
Upstairs.
Glued down?
All downstairs.
Glued down or nailed down?
All of it's nailed down except for one room, and I have a 1/2-inch, 9-inch glued down from Mullican.
That
Thank
works.
you, Neil.
David Ford, I really, really appreciate you hanging out with me. It was great meeting you finally, and talking has been fantastic. And I couldn't thank you enough for doing this little show we got going here with me. I appreciate it.
I hope it was beneficial to somebody.
I appreciate it, man.
Thanks for listening to this episode of All Things Wood Floor, sponsored by Stauf Adhesives. And don't forget to subscribe to All Things Wood Floor to make sure you don't miss a single episode.